Hi, this is the WTF SDK character creation tutorial part 4. We have basically gone through the process of creating a set of animation that's suitable for the NPC. We have also gone through the first two tabs of the NPC editor, defining all the basic properties as well as a set of actions that the player can utilize. So now we've gone to the behavior, also known as the AI part of the character creation process. And to be honest, this is probably really complicated. And so I am going to leave most of the instructions on the wiki once that comes up. And so what we'll do here is to get the most basic sets of instructions in order to get the character up and running. And by that, I just mean to have the characters stand around and walk around, and that's it. So what you need to be aware of is how a character basically works. Each character in the game keeps a list of actions that it wants to do, and it will basically perform those actions in the order that they're added to the list until the character runs out of actions. And when that happens, the character returns to this particular flowchart and it will try to find more actions to perform. So you want to make sure that at the end of this flowchart or decision tree, the character actually has something to do, or otherwise it will infinitely loop through this thing because the character's list of actions will remain empty indefinitely, and that's not a good thing. So with a basic character, you can see that, it already has two blocks by default. Whether the character's list of action is empty, that's just sort of the starting point of every time the character requires new actions. So, and we get this particular action block by default because it just needs to be there. And obviously it says unknown consequences because the code block is completely empty. We haven't had any kind of action added to the character, so we don't know what the character would actually do, which is why it says unknown consequences. So, in order to alleviate that, let's actually add a code block. And what a code block does is it basically adds a concrete set of, it adds a concrete block for actions to actually take place. And interestingly, since this is the only instruction that's in the entire flowchart, you only get an action block. Now, if you insert more blocks at this point, it will actually start to become a real flowchart where, you have condition blocks and action blocks. Condition blocks are kind of these segmenting points where you say, if the player is too close, then you attack. If he's too far away, then you walk closer, that kind of thing. But for this example, we are just going to now delete that block. So we're going back to this single action block now. Create a walk action and an idle action. So, and I just kind of glossed through that really quickly, but what I did is first I need to select the action code block, and then I click the create new line button, and it will create a new line of code for this particular code block. Since we don't have any conditions that got applied before this particular code block got executed, it will basically happen every time the character runs out of things to do. So the first thing and the default action that gets chosen would be to perform an action, which is probably the thing that happens most often. And so the action is going to be perform action, and I wanted to idle around for a little bit, so I've also chosen idle. And I want to happen 100% of the time, so character is always going to be standing around for a bit. Now we'll adjust the timing so that it stands around anywhere between 1 and 8 seconds. And this is actually a new slider, I believe. And this is what's called a variation slider. And what you can do is set the lower and upper boundary of a particular number. And you can adjust the lower and upper knob, like so. And you can also set the numbers specifically by double-clicking on the double-clicking on the slider and then adjusting the number. So the character is going to stand around for about 5 seconds. Let's add another one where the character actually walks around. I am going to have him perform another action, which is to walk around 100% of the time, so he will always walk after he idles. Let's have him walk around for about 3 seconds. And that's pretty much it. Basically, the character is going to stand around, walk around, and then it's going to run out of things to do, so it's going to go back to the beginning of the flowchart, come into the first action block. It's going to add the idle action to the list of things to do, add the walk action to the list of things to do, and then it will perform those two things, idle, walk, and then it will run out of things to do again, and then it will come back here, etc., etc. So these two lines alone basically dictates the entire set of things that the character would ever do. And with that, we're pretty much done. We have all the required things set for the character, and the character can do any of these things, and the character now knows what he wants to do when he's left alone. So I am going to hit save now, and I am going to move on to the part where we actually get to see this character in action. And we're going to go back to the starter zone. Still blank as always, but what I want to do is to actually spawn this character in the zone. And for that, I need to go to the characters panel, and the place is still kind of empty. Now, after I select the characters panel, I can click on the new button, which is kind of context sensitive to which panel you have currently selected, to create a new character spawn point. And by default, it's sort of a single spawn, which means that one copy of this particular character is going to spawn in the zone at the very beginning. Actually, that's not true. You can adjust the requirement so that it only spawns under a particular condition. But once the character spawns, he is going to be the only character that spawns until, the zone gets reloaded again. Now, I want to spawn a merchant. And you can kind of see his profile here. And that's pretty much all I need to spawn the character in the zone, so I am going to save the zone. And now, after all that time, we can actually go in and test. So we'll go into the tutorial project, with the HTML file. So remember all the nice stuff we did to the login screen, that's still there. And real quick, it's a little longer now. There's the character. And you can see the race and class at the bottom left corner, human vendor. And you can see him, just walk off the screen. So like I predefined, he's going to stand around for a couple of seconds, and then he's going to walk for about 3 seconds. Notice that I didn't actually give him an instruction on where to go, so he just kind of wandered off. I am going to quit him back in and show him again. He's going to stand around, and then he's going to walk off. So without a specific direction to tell him where to go, he's just going to walk around randomly left and right. And more often than not, he kind of walks off the screen. I'm just gonna quickly demonstrate some other things that you can do to him. He by default can interact with the attack actions of the player character. Notice that I have not adjusted the hitbox, so if I hit too high, oh, I don't have a jump attack, but if I hit too high, I won't be able to hit him. And interestingly, he gives off XP, he dies, despawns, all that junk is taken care of for you. So that ends the character tutorial, and we'll actually come back to this character eventually for some of the other more in-depth things that we do later on. And I will see you next time.